screen for the.
Sure.
So this morning, we're gonna start by having the sponsors of H205, which is the bill on the wall, walk us through the bill, introduce it to the committee. So we have Representative Supranat and Representative Graham at the head of the table. Good morning.
Good morning.
And yes, please tell us what H205 is all about.
Sure. So this is a very simple bill, and I'll just start by reading the purpose because the purpose really states what it is intending to do. So this bill proposes to establish the Small Farm Diversification and Transition Program at the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets to provide small farms in Vermont with state financial assistance to diversify production on a farm or to transition from one form of farming to another. And so we left that very intentionally vague as not to limit any kind of creative enterprises that farming or farmers are looking to transition to. And the main focus in this is really trying to make sure that small farms, whether they're certified small farms or just SFOs, are getting adequate financial assistance with the idea that diversification is one of the key components to making farms viable, and equally acknowledging that we are losing small farms at a faster rate than our larger farms. And we want to make sure that that ag land stays an ag land. And if that means allowing farms to have a different revenue stream, then we view this bill as something that could really help with that process. It does have a small appropriation of $250,000 to be administered for the grant program, which will be established by the Agency of Agriculture. And it has 4 components that the cost should be used for, which are diversifying the agricultural commodities produced on a small farm, transitioning a small farm from one form of farming to another, on-farm processing of an agricultural commodities on a small farm, and development of an accessory on-farm business on a small farm. Everything will have to be approved by the secretary, and they have some discretion over creating criteria for what eligibility will look like. The primary source of eligibility will be that small farm component,
which is defined by the RAPS. Agriculture practices. So the purpose is, proposed to diverse or transition to create additional income on a farm. The Secretary Food Markets shall issue small farm diversification transition program grants under this section when funds are available for the program on a first come, first served basis. Applications shall be processed in the order received, but applications shall not be ready for evaluation until the Secretary determines that the application is complete. Please. I think they have to be in good standing as well with that agency. And in addition to any other funds appropriate to Agency of Ag, Foods and Market fiscal year 2024, at $250,000 is appropriated from the general fund purpose of this program. And the act will take place July 1, 2023.
Representative, yes, Levitt.
I just have a question. How many applications do you think you might get, and what do you see as the size of the grant?
We, first of all, have no idea how many applications we might receive, and equally, I'm not really seeing a cap on the grant apart from, most of the time for a small farm, put it over 10 to 15,000, but
Okay.
we're going to allow the agency to figure out what that number might look like. Now, it might best suit a small farm operation.
And then a secondary question to that is, how will this be promoted fairly to all of the farmers? Because it says it's on first come, first served basis of applications. How are we gonna make sure that all the small farmers know about it in a timely way?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I think that a lot of that is going to come down to how the agency markets it.
Okay,
And I don't know how much control we necessarily have over that positioning, but I think that it's something we could make sure that we really want to focus on within the agency's calendar of
Yeah.
grants that they put out.
okay.
Usually the agency is pretty good at notifying what grants are available and when they're available,
Okay, great.
either through email or, especially through email to the farming community.
Okay.
I have to be honest, this was proposed, put in drafting before we heard the issues with the organic farms.
Right.
So, 250,000 might not be enough.
With the idea of that being that a lot of the small farms that are going out are dairy farms, and potentially acknowledging that if they want to continue in agriculture, that perhaps having funding for another form of farming might be really helpful and useful in transitioning them out of that if they have already lost their dairy farming. But we did not use the language of dairy farming. We left it very open to be an inclusive
Right.
process for all small farms.
For the farm.
Right.
It doesn't limit it to changing from one to the other. It could be adding on to make value added products, to do farm business, accessory. So it could be just to create additional income versus switching right out of it.
Right.
Is it designed, or at least in your intent is to have this be not just a one-time appropriation next year, but this is a program that exists permanently and that we would hope to have this amount of money appropriated annually?
That would be
Right.
the idea, especially if it proved to be something that was exceptionally useful for small farms. If it maxed out after this allocation of time, then I think that yes.
And just hypothetically, the way that it's written, and we can talk about this more when we have Ledge Council come in, but if somebody came in with a proposal that met all of the criteria, seemed like a good idea, and needed $250,000 in order to launch, would the agency be obligated to say okay to that? And then that would exhaust the funding?
So there is nothing in here that expressly says what the amount of grant money will be for a specific grant. So I think maybe we could add clarity in that, because I don't think that we want one farm to come in and take it, considering that's not very diverse.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe we could add some additional clarity to say that you will not be using the entire sum of that, and we could have more specifications around the amounts that we would like the grants to look like.
Representative Lipsky.
First of all, I apologize, Heather and Rodney, for being late. But it, and to everyone else in the room, I try not to be late.
And you're laughing because Representative Graham was a minute or two late also.
So does this lead me to, I'm reading that the total amount is 250 for this fund?
The total amount is 250, and just as we start up the program. Yeah,
So to the point, you can get a tractor for 250 and a very good one, but not the biggest one piece of equipment. So I'm assuming this is more for feeder sort of initiatives or startup. If you're talking about the state of Vermont, maybe.
It is limited to small farms, and they probably wouldn't need to buy a tractor that's over $250,000. They probably don't have the land base to turn it around.
So it's focused on small.
it is. It is only designated for small farms, certified small farms, and small farm operations would be the only ones who could be awarded this grant.
because, all the, farm to school testimony we've taken, a vegetable or a small, anything, that numerous small farms would do more to have immediately local sources, to help support that initiative. So I think knowing that it's so focused on really small startup or conversions is an added imperative of value that how it can contribute to those niche markets that we're looking for outlets or markets.
Right,
Thank you for that clarification.
sure.
And small farms, again, just to help us remember, in terms of number of if it's dairy, how many cows can still
So
be called?
certified small farm is 50 to 99, mature minimum.
And a small farm,
And there's all the other categories, beef, I can't, off the top of my head, tell you whatever else are.
so there's small farm and there's certified small farm, and I'm not
Right.
sure which is bigger.
A certified small farm is bigger.
Is bigger,
A small farm is low.
Okay, so anything up to 99.
yes, considered a small farm.
Representative Levitt?
So, okay, walk me through my CSA person. So let's say she got crushed by drought last year, which she did. Could she apply for a grant to diversify some of the vegetables that she plants? And get drip lines or so whatever, better irrigation that she hasn't been able to get? Or I'm just trying to sort of understand the diversification part.
I would imagine that if she's a CSA farmer, she's already fairly diversified, since most farmers who are
Okay,
vegetable farmers in the CSA,
Just
yeah.
to define might be helpful.
Yes, what diversification means.
Okay.
We could add clarity to that and what transition and the intent means. And
Okay.
that's certainly.
because it feels to me like what it should be is not what I just asked. It should be for farmers who are switching from dairy to beef
Or
or,
adding.
Or adding.
You could be a veggie farmer and decide to add an egg operation.
Exactly,
or goats or something.
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
Added
Right.
that you didn't previously.
Or paid.
Okay.
right.
Right.
Or a dairy farmer who wants to start growing pumpkins.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you. That is helpful. A definition would be great.
sure.
Cool.
Representative Cole?
For the selection process of grant recipients, I see the appeal of the first come, first serve, but it would be also interesting to add a component about perhaps need on a tiered level, if there are ways to identify that, as well as the ideas that they're proposing, how sustainable they are for the business and for maybe even the environment, like added bonuses like that, like creativity points kind of for that as well.
Sure, so creativity points and equally an equity component, is that what you're looking for? And perhaps trying to see
Absolutely.
the
Just
impact
curious.
we can keep-
Yeah, if you guys have thought about that as a part of the selection process as well versus the first come, first serve.
I mean,
Does that mean you have to have a grant?
We kind of left this vague.
Yeah.
All you guys would have something to do.
I am certainly open to looking at the eligibility and reshaping that criteria, if that would feel better for the committee.
Representative O'Brien? Did you have a question?
I did, yeah. You introduced this as small farms are going out of business at an alarming rate. But we're also talking about actually potentially successful small farms, diversified. So is there a way to separate those two? I mean, what we really want to do is keep ag land, right? Like a small farm saying, we're done, we're going out. And you saying, wait, we have funds, go into swine or maple or whatever. Now that you're out of dairy mostly. It just seems like if you add small farms that are doing well, that just want to diversify, because that's what they do, they know how to pivot, that creates a much bigger population for this very small grant.
Right, so you're thinking that there should be two grants? One for farms who are essentially losing their farms and one for farms who are successful but looking to just add another.
Diversify.
I would say
Stream of
first
revenue.
trigger seems like it should be farms that are leaving ag. If there's a way to say, why not try
But I think,
swine, Henry?
Yeah, so Representative Levitt had a question, but Mike, you know.
just address, I think that part of what they're getting after here is that there isn't currently funds for, even if a farm is successful, has diversified and is
Right.
successful, there aren't funds for them to access to diversify, to continue that process. And so this would be creating helping farms that are going out of business, transition to another, but also addressing an important need, which is that there isn't currently a place for farms that successful, anywhere on the scale can go to continue diversifying,
But
continue strengthening.
I think Working Lands does some of that now though, right?
Working lands, it does do some of that, but if you look at the eligibility requirements, they're not necessarily tiered towards the small scale operators. A lot of those projects actually really benefit medium farm operations. So this is very specified.
I just want to clarify, this is not the intention of a farm getting out of agriculture. I want to retire and go to Florida. I need to buy a condo in Florida. Not for that. It's intended to be to help the farmer keep their farm going one way or another, keeping the land open.
So,
I'm saying, I mean,
interestingly, later this morning, we have the Working Lands folks are coming in to talk about 2022. And it may provide a little more context for what you're thinking about here. Just because we're about out of time, do you have questions about what the intent is here? We'll have more time to discuss. I mean, we will dig into this with all of our, ideas and contributions, but if anybody wants to ask more of what we're trying to do here.
and you can ask us anytime, you know where we are.
Okay, well, good. Thank you both.